Hi, welcome to another episode of the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm Steve Richardson, a bankruptcy attorney trying to keep people on their path to financial stability and independence through education. Most people wait until they reach age 65 or older to retire. One of the reasons is that you can maximize your Social Security benefit. This makes retirement something that is far into the future. But what if you don't want to wait that long? What if you want to have more time to enjoy it? That's why in this episode of the podcast, I talked to engineer, real estate professional, and CEO of Dirty Boots Capital, Tony Lopes, on how it can be done. My guest today is Tony Lopes, a first generation American, CEO of Dirty Boots Capital, real estate professional, best selling author, coach, and speaker. He earned a BS in mechanical engineering and an MBA from the University of Massachusetts. He worked in the defense industry for 19 years, managing a multi-million dollar program while simultaneously building a portfolio of residential income properties. He's also the author of a book, Freedom at Risk: How to Protect Your Personal and Financial Freedoms. His investments, coupled with his understanding of marketing and economics, allowed him to retire at age 44. And how he did it is what I want to talk to him about today. So welcome to the show, Tony.
Thanks for having me on, Steve. This is going to be a lot of fun. We were just before you even hit the record button, we were just chatting about things, and man, we were already getting into it. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wanted to hit record. We were talking about a lot of good stuff, and I want to make sure we shared it with the listeners. So,
Yeah.
obviously, you were able to retire at 44, but obviously you're still working. But I've talked to a lot of people about the subject of retirement, and they say, well, retirement kind of, if you take a strict definition of it, is sort of a retreat or a stepping back, and you don't necessarily have to do that, especially when what you do is your passion. So it really isn't work anymore. So I guess retiring for me at age 44 is sort of retiring from doing what other people want you to do and
Yeah,
moving on to what you want to do.
yeah,
Oh,
it provides that opportunity for self-discovery, right?
mhm.
All too often we're kind of led down a path of, go to school, choose your career, right? We're
Mhm.
we're forced to choose a career, whatever it may be, and then we end up working at, 40, 50, 60 hours a week for the next, 30, 40 years. And then
Yeah.
it's like you retire and it's like, wait a minute, there's a whole nother world out there that I want to explore.
Mhm.
So it's retirement can be an amazing thing.
Yeah, and you're right. There's so much focus on what your career is, whether it's declaring a major in college or trying to pick a future and things like that. There was a comedian, Paula Poundstone, who said, you see all these little kids, all these grown-ups asking little kids what they want to be when they grow up because they're looking for ideas.
That's right.
So,
That's right. I don't know what
even
I want to be.
sometimes us grown-ups don't necessarily know. Uh,
No.
but one of the things you talk about is the importance of realizing your potential.
Yeah.
Tell us about this and its importance of financial freedom and how realizing that potential can help you build wealth and retire early.
Yeah, so one way I talk about potential is, think about potential in terms of value,
Mhm.
right? What is your value? What value do you bring to the world or to your employer, right? We're in interesting times here, so now's a perfect time for our folks out there, for the listeners and for the viewers, to be thinking about what value they truly bring to an employer, because we've been in 15 years of an economic boom, and it's been great. And you really haven't heard a hell of a lot about layoffs and things like that. But eventually, the tide is going to turn, and there's going to be more news stories about layoffs and things like that, cutbacks. And so I think now's a perfect time for folks to think about the value they bring to their employer, and really what they offer.
Mhm.
Because value isn't just, oh, I went to school and I got a degree in marketing. Oh, okay, that's great. I hire people who do marketing for me, and I don't hire them based on they went to school for marketing. I want to know what value they bring to me. Like,
Mhm.
when I look at somebody who's in marketing, I say, "Hey, how big's your following on social media? Do you have 300 or do you have 300,000?" There's value there, right? If somebody's going to be doing marketing for me and they can get my message out to 300,000 people because they already have that audience, that's value, right? If
Mhm.
I have somebody who can not only do social media for me, but can also is somewhat of a graphics designer, but is also somewhat of a copyright editor, somebody who can kind of put all that together, that's value. If you're just a one-trick pony,
Mhm.
you may be first on the list for being cut from the team.
Mhm.
So now is a perfect time to be thinking about your potential, your value that you bring to a company, right,
Mhm.
or to your own business. What can you do to increase your value,
Mhm.
right? And increase the worth of, if you think of ourselves as each individual stocks, right? What can I do to increase with the value of my stock, right?
Mhm.
And so that's one of the things. So it's just a different mindset.
Mhm.
Like productivity, I don't want folks, or potential to be like just work more, work harder. I want them to think of it in terms of value. What value do they bring to an organization or to another person, right?
Mhm. Well, no question. And these days, you interview for your job, and uh, you may you may be a fit for that job in your current skill set. But if you want to get anywhere, if you want to advance, if you want to do more,
Yeah,
then you need to bring more to the table. If
yeah,
all you do, you're never going to get significant raises, increases in income, bonuses, things like that, just by doing the job they hired you to do, and you're never going to advance. So by bringing those additional skill sets to the table, that helps. And also, with the pandemic making companies realize that, and although a lot of them want people to come back to the office, a lot of them are realizing the benefits of a virtual workforce because they
mhm,
have a much larger talent pool.
yeah,
So now you said, "Oh, I got a degree in marketing." Well, how many other people graduated with a degree in marketing? Not only in your area or your state or this country,
yeah,
because that's who you're competing with. And if you don't bring those skills to the table, there's something more to really make you stand out.
yeah.
Then not only are you going to have difficulty advancing and making more money in your lifetime and in your career, but you, in the short term, you're going to have difficulty getting the job in the first place.
Yeah, and
So,
I love that you brought up the pandemic and the remote working from home,
mhm,
because that's been a game changer. And so you always gotta reevaluate like your value and what you bring to the table. One of the things I chat with young people about is, I love working with young people because they're a lot of energy, a lot of great ideas. They think differently than I do because I'm a dinosaur in some regards. Uh, so it's really fun to chat with these young people. They just blow my mind sometimes. So one of the things, I share with them is it's I'll say it's cute to go to school for something like your as they say their passion.
mhm,
But can you really make money from it?
mhm,
Right? Because you got to support yourself, right? You got to adult at some point. So we talk about passion versus profit, right? So we got to think about that. And today, with young people, one of the things in that conversation that we talk about is artificial intelligence, right? How technology is evolving so quickly that you imagine somebody going to school. We'll stay on the topic of marketing, right? Somebody goes to school today, they're a freshman going to college for marketing, a marketing degree. In 4 years, they're going to come out with some sort of marketing degree with a bachelor's in marketing, whatever. Where do you think artificial intelligence is going to be in 4 years? It's going to look vastly different. Artificial intelligence is already doing marketing for us. I use it, right?
mhm,
It's already doing marketing for us in some ways. So we got to be really careful that what we're going to college for and what we're taking courses on today don't become obsolete. And I'm not saying marketing isn't a good career choice. I'm just saying we have to be careful how we navigate this minefield, because the next 4 years with some of this technology that's coming along, it may put some of these kids on the sidelines with a unmarketable degree, right?
A
You know,
marketable marketing degree.
that's right. And also, I'll throw out there, it's also things like software.
Mhm.
People who write software code. AI is already writing software code. It's already doing scripts. So somebody who goes to school and likes to, just sit at a computer and write software scripts, I mean, that's great. But AI is probably going to do, in another 4 years, AI is probably going to do 80% of their job.
Mm,
And I'm sure they're not going to be able to live on 20% of the income that they're going to be able to bring to the table. So you
yeah.
got to think about that in terms of the value stream. Again, value, what they're going to bring to the table once they graduate.
Well, and that's I was going to ask you about sort of the chicken and the egg situation, where to get a job you need experience, and in order to get the experience you need the job. How young people fresh out of college, they have these degrees, uh, what they can do to develop that potential
Yeah.
in the first place. You
Yeah.
mentioned writing code. Yes, there are Chat GPT can write JavaScript, Apple script, a lot of these scripting languages. But what it can't do, at least not yet, is what would the program do?
Yeah.
What is your marketing, your programming? All right, what if it's a game? All right, well the software may be able to write the code, but and even 30, 40 years ago, you had programming environments where you could input graphically the design elements of what you wanted the program to do, and then that system would write the code for you. But
Yeah.
still having the intelligence and the skills to and the creativeness
Yeah.
to come up with what kind of program you want AI to write,
Yeah.
what kind of campaign you would like to do in marketing so that the chat gpt can write the copy.
Yeah.
So there's still that more of a higher level. We keep pushing up with the industrial revolution and things like that, where unskilled labor is going away. You don't need order takers in fast food. You just tap the order screen and place your order.
Yeah.
So how do kids coming out of college, they have these degrees, and hopefully the schools are keeping up and saying, well, now you ought to be learning Swift programming language so you can write for all the Apple platforms and things like that. Uh, but how do you get past that very age old catch
Yeah.
22 of
Yeah.
experience and
Yeah.
job and employment?
Yeah, I love that. So I'll speak to that, but what you shared in terms of what AI cannot do today and may not ever really be able to do really well is what I refer to is kind of both ends of the value stream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interfacing with the customer in
Mm-hmm.
terms of requirement definition,
Mm-hmm.
right? AI can't do that. You need somebody in a company who knows software, who knows marketing to talk to the customer and say, help me with the requirement definition, right? And then you need somebody on the back end to who, like you're saying, needs to interpret the results. Is this software program? Is this game? Is this marketing strategy working for us? Let's go do some polls. Let's go do some tests. What demographic are we going after? Are we hitting it right? So when you're looking at some of these degrees, and you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at AI specifically, I think, being at either end of those where you're interfacing with a customer and or with a client, the
Mm-hmm.
end user, that's where you're going to be somewhat protected, going forward here in the next,
Mm-hmm.
I would say 4 to 10 years, if I was to put a prediction out there. But in terms of the chicken and egg scenario, you brought up, how do they get experience? I mean, young people today, I mean, yeah, it's hard. One thing I share with young people, I share this with my own family, just so the listeners and the audience knows. I do this very same thing with my family. I have a niece and some nephews. who are just coming into their own now, or early, or late teens. They're in their late teens, early 20s. And I share with them, it's not about making money. I know you need to make some money to put gas in the car and all that sort of stuff. But let me tell you, the long game here is you need to get that experience, that chicken and the egg experience. You need to go work for somebody for free, right? And I share with them, go work for an attorney for free. Just go up to them, have that conversation, whether you meet them at a conference or through a professor that you may know, or maybe they're your neighbor. Hey, I have the summer off. I got nothing to do. Can I come work for you for 3 or 4 months? I'm real curious about, being an attorney, and I'd like to learn about contracts and legal stuff, and just kind of see what you guys do. I'll work for free,
Hmm.
right? And in that, 3, 4 months, they're going to get so much experience in that 3 to 4 months, right? It's the same thing. If you're not inclined to, do legal stuff, go work for a CPA,
Hmm.
right? Go work and go, do some tax work with a CPA, right?
Hmm.
You're not going to be able to do like, Schedule C's for a corporation, but you're definitely going to be able to do some 1040Zs, some 1040 long forms. You're going to be
Hmm.
able to do some of that stuff and really start to get a flavor. Imagine now you're a young kid and you're looking at a 1040 long form and you're going through that and you're saying, "Holy cow, this person makes $1 million a year, yet they only pay 5,000 in taxes. How did they do that? They
I'd
made
like
a
to
million,
know.
right? Right? And maybe that's an extreme, but to be able to have that experience to say, I'm looking at this person's long form, they make a ton of money and they pay little tax. Wait a minute, let me dig in. Let me go ask the CPA about this because this doesn't make sense. Imagine if that's the only thing somebody gets in a 3-month CPA assignment where they work for free. That's going to be huge. That is huge because they're 18, 19, 20 years old. To be able to take that knowledge
Hmm.
and now use it for the rest of your life, man, I wish somebody taught me some of those things back when I was 18 and 19 years old because I'd be in a different place now.
Yeah. It can be difficult though to do that and say, I'll work for free for the experience when you're trying to get enough money for college and not borrow more than you absolutely have to. So
Yeah.
a lot of people may not be in a position to do a free internship. For those in those
Yeah.
positions, is there anything else that people can do to gain these skill sets to make them more valuable in the job market and have better careers?
Yeah, I mean, paid internships would be great. I mean, that would
Mhm.
be ideal. And I think I just saw it again this week, where one of my contractors has their kids working for him,
Mhm.
and he pays them. He has them on the books. He pays them, and they're creating value for the business. So maybe if your parents have a business, and I know sometimes it may be tough. I mean, hey, welcome to being an adult. Nothing is is easy sometimes, it seems.
Right.
But go to your parents and say, hey, mom, dad, you guys have a business. Hey, put me on the books, pay me a little bit each week, and I'll do something. Maybe it's create customer orders, right? Maybe it's doing some marketing for them, right? Maybe these kids, they're so much more better at social media and marketing, just naturally. They know it.
Mhm.
It's amazing. Have them do social media for your business if mom and dad have a business or something like that, right? I mean, so I think every case is different,
Mhm.
and not everything works for everybody. I mean, I certainly found that out with the real estate coaching that I do. It's like, it's not always, round peg round hole. It doesn't always work. You gotta look at the situation and see where the opportunities lie for that person. Everybody's different. Some people are introverts, some people are extroverts. I do a lot of stuff with networking, and because we know, our network is our net worth, right? That's a saying that's out there. It's been there for a long time, and there's a reason for it because it's valid. So I do a lot of networking work with folks to help them develop what their network is and grow it so that they can ultimately have a better net worth. But
Hmm.
it takes work, it takes time, and it takes action. People have to go out there and do it. I
Hmm.
can't do it for them. And getting back to, everybody's different. Some people are extroverts and networking is very easy for them. Other people are introverts, like myself. I'm
Yeah.
an introvert. I'm off the chart introvert. So we have to do it a little differently, but it's not to say that these things can't be done. It's just a case by case basis.
Right. And anything you do, I mean, it has to be to an extent quantifiable because you gain this experience and then you have to relate it in more concrete terms to a potential employer or your employer if you're trying to get a raise or promotion. So, there are different metrics, and we've heard about metrics like return on investment or ROI, but
Yeah,
you also talk about a metric called return on life. Tell
yeah.
us about that and why it's important and how it might be able to help measure potential.
Well, you know, Steve, I think all too often, especially now with social media, people see things on social media and just in life, and it's like, um, they want what somebody else has.
Mhm.
Whether it's, hey, that's a beautiful picture of a new car. I wish I had a new car, or a beautiful home, or whatever it is, or nice clothes, or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And I think we have to put less emphasis on that.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's just table that for a second. And we all have to look at each one of the viewers and the listeners, take a look at your world and where you are and what you have for financial means
Mhm.
and what you have for physical ability, right? There's probably people out there, I know there will be, that have more physical ability than I do, that have better financial means than I do. And their world is going to look very different than my world. So, you
Mhm.
know what? Don't compare yourself to me. I don't compare myself to somebody else. Let's just look at ourselves. And from there, with our financial means and our physical abilities, we define our box, what our return on life looks like.
Mhm.
Some people are very happy to live in an apartment the rest of their life. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Mhm.
There's other people who want to have a mansion, and that's okay, right? So if you're the person that lives in an apartment and you don't have to take care of a thing, and you have the freedom to, uh, that gives you the freedom to go on vacation when you want to go on vacation, or that gives you the freedom to buy a new car every 3 years because home ownership is more expensive. It just is,
Mhm.
right? So if that gives you the freedom to have certain frills and things in your life, to have a better return on life, what's wrong with living in an apartment? There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Mhm.
But and likewise, if you want to have a mansion and that brings you certain joy, and you have a backyard you go out onto, and you have a chipping putt, a chipping green there to practice your putting and whatnot. That's great. Like, don't measure yourself by what somebody else has. Don't say I'm here and somebody else is here and I want to be up here, right? How do I, right? If you're here, that's okay.
Mhm.
Just design your life around that so you have a good life,
Mhm.
right? Don't get into this, we have so many things now, so many illnesses these days. We have more depression, we have more anxiety. You know, I think it's partly because of this. I remember, growing up, my parents were immigrants. They came to, I'm first generation. We didn't have a lot. Very blue collar family.
Mhm.
And, my parents didn't have much, and they would say to us constantly, like when we would say, and this was our calibration to this, you know, we would say, oh, they have better sneakers than us. They have better, clothes than us. Or my parents would say, I don't care what the neighbor has, right?
Mhm.
I, right? Don't judge ourselves, so don't judge yourself by the quality of tennis shoes somebody's wearing. Be happy for what you have,
Mhm.
right? And for the life that you have a clean house, you have, right? Be happy for what you do have and the quality and the ability to exercise your freedom the way you want to. And so that was a lesson early on in life that, really struck home for me, and I continue to share it to this day.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's get away from measuring ourselves on somebody else's yardstick.
Mhm.
Let's not do that.
Okay. Well, well, obviously, in if you want to retire by age 44, the I mean, people trying to get more in building wealth. There's there's only so far you can go with your job,
Yeah.
because your job is you go to work, you work a certain number of hours, and they give you money in return for that, and that ties money to time, which and since time is finite, that makes money finite, and your ability to generate money and wealth becomes finite. So really the only way to get around that is to unhook money from time, which means passive income.
Yeah.
So, what are some ways folks that can leverage passive income
Yeah.
so that they can generate wealth a bit faster, get more financial independence, and maybe retire a couple decades earlier?
Yeah, that's a great question. And part of it starts with, what do you want?
Mm,
Right? Again, I think too many people kind of rush to the finish line, or what they perceive the finish line to be, and say, I want to retire early, or
hmm
whatever it may be. And it's like, I think we have to all ask ourselves the question, and this really was what happened to me when I retired at 44. I was left with, okay, so what now?
hmm
What do I do? What's my purpose? Right? What's my purpose in life? Like it took me, honestly, it took me about 4 years to get through that and
hmm
try to figure out, like, really, what do I want? Like, what do I want the rest of my life to look like? And so I do think we need to all take some quiet time and assess that,
hmm
because in assessing that, you will you will get to the point of how much money you need to make to
hmm
achieve that quality of life, right? Some people may say, I have these young neighbors that live next to me here, and they're beautiful people, but you know what? They are perfectly fine going on weekend camping trips or day trips or hiking a mountain. That's their vacation. That's like their return on life, is being there, right?
hmm
Other people like to go on cruises or river cruises that cost $7,000 for, for a short river cruise.
hmm
And so that's the other end of the spectrum. So you really have to know, what do I want? What do I want my life to look like?
hmm
Right? So once you get through that, kind of like how much money I'm going to need,
hmm
let's say, right? So if you're working a job, great. There's goodness that comes with the job, a lot of benefits.
hmm
But like you say, Steve, you're selling your time for money.
hmm
It just is. So I can go into different things, like, I've done, and I have friends now that, they trade stock, right?
hmm
Apple, Microsoft, all that sort of stuff, and unknown stocks that, we've never heard of. But there was a time where I was doing that and I was making $1,000 a week. It was
hmm
great. I was truly enjoying it. Was making about $1,000 a week, which isn't too shabby. That's 52K a year. So pretty good. And it was fun, and I was learning. I was reading books, I was reading blogs, I was watching others that were just masters. I'm making $1,000 a week, and they're making tens of thousands a week. And so it was just a fun learning experience for me.
hmm
And so that's something that, maybe if somebody has a small nest egg that they're willing to put on the line, you have to assess the risk, right? Some people are
hmm
more adverse to risk than others. So that's maybe one thing somebody can do to create some passive income, because with stocks you can put, alerts on your phone. It's so easy today with smartphones. This did not exist 20 years ago,
Mm,
right? As we know. So, you can put alerts on your phone, and when a stock hits a certain price point, you can buy or you can sell. You can put stop losses on them. There's so many ways, so that you could be at the beach
mhm,
enjoying the beach, and it's buying stock or selling stock. You don't, right? You're buying for certain fundamentals or selling on certain fundamentals. So that can be a very passive way
mm,
if you have a certain amount of a nest egg to put towards that. Obviously, real estate is another way, but you need more of a nest egg for that. For
mm,
other folks who may not have the means to do some of that stuff, I'd say, start maybe like an Amazon storefront, right? Find something that's super popular that people are interested in, right?
mhm,
It's not necessarily about you, right? Because if I loved, purple unicorns, and I put up an Amazon marketplace that sold purple unicorns, I'd probably go out of business in the first month. So you got to find something that the audience is really
mhm,
interested in. So once you find that thing, so that takes a little bit of research. That's free, right? It's your time. Okay. Instead of watching sitcoms at night after work, maybe you put a few hours dedicated towards the research. And then creating the Amazon marketplace is also something that people can do themselves. It's a very doable thing. Sure, there's a cost involved, but it's low cost to enter, right? And
mm,
so you can put up things for sale that you may not even stock yourself, right? You're selling somebody else's stuff that they stock. So here you are, able to make a few bucks on every transaction. How great would that be? You go onto social media. If you're a young kid and you have a huge social media following, you can put on there, hey, I'm having a special this week on, socks. I'm having a special this week on, whatever it is that you're selling. So I think that's a great way to make some passive income, because you can be at school, right? You can be at college, going through your day, and your website's doing its thing. People are on there, they're looking, they're buying, right? And your bank account's just going up from there, right?
mm,
So that's just you have that experience, and there's going to be some learning, right? It's not a bonanza like on day one, unless it goes viral in some way. But that's a learning experience that not only can you potentially make, some good money each and every month, but that's also good experience. You talk about, these young kids, the chicken and the egg, how do they get the experience? Well, you know what? If a kid came to me and they said, "Hey, Tony, I want to work for you," and I'm like, "Well, what kind of experience do you have?" Like, well, I set up my own Amazon marketplace, and we did, yeah, whatever, 3,000 in revenue each month, and I made $1,000 each month, and whatever it is. Well, tell me about that. How did you select the products? What type of marketing did you do? How did you determine the price point? How did you negotiate what your profit was going to be? What if something wasn't a seller? What did you do with that? So it just goes down this conversation that's just absolutely amazing, because they set up this simple Amazon marketplace,
yeah.
for themselves. So that's just one idea. I talk about even like little kids. I encourage parents. I'm like, go buy a vending machine for your kid. Like, take their birthday money. If you have nothing else, take their birthday money and go buy a vending machine and go work with your kid. It's your kid's vending machine, but now your kid has to decide, where do I put it? And you know what? If you have a kid that goes into a convenience store or goes to the ballpark and asks the manager or the volunteer there to say, hey, imagine an 8-year-old kid come to you, Steve, and say, hey, I'd like to put a vending machine there because I'm learning this, and I'm trying to figure that da, 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 da. I want to go into business one day myself. I want to be the next Elon Musk, whatever. Are you going to say no to that 8-year-old kid?
I may want to talk to their parents, but yeah.
Right? I mean, you want to help. I mean,
Right.
generally, you want to help kids, right? So chances are that kid's going to get a yes. And so, but they have to figure out, where am I going to put this vending machine, right? That's a thought process. Do you want to put it in the front of a nursing home? filled with energy drinks, or do you want to put it at the ball field filled with energy drinks?
Right.
You know, think about that. And they're part of that decision. What sort of food do you want to put in there? Do you want to put healthy snacks? Do you want to put chips? Hey, what if those chips aren't selling? What do you do? Do you continue to stock it with keep those chips in there, or do you replace it with some other thing? Right?
Right.
It's price points. What do you price them at? Oh, sure, you can buy it for 50 cents. What do you want to put it in at? 75 or put in at $1? Yeah.
Yep,
These are all
pricing,
great conversations.
market demand, things like that. It all comes into play, and there's so many books these days that tell you how to do things on so many different uh, topics where you can
Yeah.
really learn it yourself. And it sounds to me like all that you've been describing here kind of answers my original question of how did you retire at age 44? Because you found these ways to make money that unhook from time and
Yeah.
are able to generate income for you, like Tim Ferriss's 4 hour work week. You set
Yeah.
up the machine and it operates without you, doesn't need
Yeah.
you there, and it cranks out the money for you.
Yeah. And
So,
another, so I love that book, Steve. I'm going to throw another one out there for the audience. If they haven't heard it or haven't read it, pick it up. This is a super easy read. I read it. I'm not a big reader, but I read it in like 2 days. Super fun book. It's a book by, oh God, I'll remember his name, but it's called Who Not How.
mhm,
Um, Who Not How. It's a yellow cover book. But basically what it teaches is, um, you don't need to be the person who knows how to do everything.
mhm,
Find the who in your life, or go create that relationship with a who that knows how to do it.
mhm,
Right. And I'll give you an example. I just had somebody, a young kid today. He's 26 years old. He has his own pressure washing business on the side. So he's a firefighter during the day, and then he also does pressure washing on the side. So he's still selling his time for money, but that's okay. He has multiple income streams. So okay, he's getting there. He's figuring it out. And so he came to me today, he sent me a message, and he said, hey Tony, I know you know business, blah blah blah. I know this guy who wants to sell his pressure washing business for 300 grand, and he makes, 100 grand. He does 100 grand in gross revenue each year. Should I buy it? And I'm like, whoa, there's so many questions here.
yeah,
But the thing is, it goes back to who, not how. He knows who, me, right? He knows
uh-huh,
me. So I'm the who that can do the how. How do we value
mhm,
this company that somebody wants to sell?
right,
Right? So here's this 26-year-old kid. He's doing great stuff. God bless him. I'm really excited to work with him. And so he really embodies the who, not how. So if you haven't read the book, or again, these things are cheap, right?
mhm.
Like, go buy the book for a few bucks. Thrift books. I love thriftbooks.com because you can get some of these books for like pennies on the dollar. Who, not how. Gosh, I wish I remembered the author's name.
I'll look it up and put it in
Ah,
the show notes. But before we finish the episode and wrap up, while we're talking about books, let's talk about your book. All right, protecting personal and financial freedoms. Could you
yeah.
give us maybe a 5 minute rundown on some of the things that our listeners can learn from reading your book?
Yeah, so thank you, Steve. I appreciate this time. So basically, I created my book. When I wrote it, it wasn't supposed to be a book at all, right? I don't want somebody to think it's a textbook. It's absolutely not. I actually started out, it was supposed to be like 30 pages that I was writing for my niece and my nephews. Again, they're young 20s. I wanted to explain to them, share with them my last 50 years on this planet,
Mhm.
like how things work. That I know they're not learning in school. So I set out to write, 20, 30 pages to help them kind of figure out these things. And I was at like 35,000 words. And I was like, holy cow, this isn't, 20, 30 pages anymore. This is a book. And so me too. I I went to school for engineering. I don't know jack about writing a book,
Mhm.
cover graphics and marketing and editing and all that. I had to go find out the who's, right? Again, the
Mhm.
who's to be able to do that stuff because that wasn't me. I didn't know how to do that, nor was I going to learn that. I
Mhm.
had no interest, so to speak. I just wanted to write the book. So I found those who's to get it over the goal line, get it onto Amazon. And so yeah, so that's basically the genesis of the book. So don't think I don't want folks to think it's a textbook. It's a very easy read. I've had phenomenal feedback on the book that it's been very easy for folks to read and follow and understand. And so it's divided into two parts, right? Two parts. Part one is really the explanation of how
Mhm.
our freedoms are at risk. Again, you can't get to the end state, to the goal, to what you want unless you understand how our freedoms are at risk. So I divided into like 5 chapters, how the government steals our freedom. And this isn't, a red versus blue. I don't care about that. It's just how the politics work.
Mhm.
So first chapter is how politics steals your freedoms.
Mhm.
Second chapter, I talk about the education system, how that steals your freedoms, right? We have kids, we give kids going into college $100,000 loans to go to school, and there's like no real thought behind the scenes on how these kids are going to be able to pay those loans back. What a disservice we're doing to these kids and
Mhm.
strapping them with debt that cannot be forgiven unless Biden has his way and Harris have their way. And so maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But the education system steals our freedoms, right? The economy steals our freedoms with these booms and these busts if we're not careful, right? We need to understand what's happening in the economy. So I put some things in there to help people kind of see some of the signs
Mhm.
of a recession coming, and maybe they want to protect themselves in some ways. Great. And so I also talk about the fourth chapter is about society. We ourselves steal our freedoms. We too eagerly and willfully give up our freedoms to the government, right? We have to stop doing that, right? We
Mhm.
have to be responsible for ourselves and for our children, and go back to some of the original things our parents and grandparents and the founding fathers believed in. So it takes time and energy. Yes, it does. But if we want to preserve our freedoms as a society, those are the things we have to do. And then lastly, I have a separate chapter on the monetary system, the
Mhm.
dollar and fiat currency, because that's what a lot of our freedom is based on wealth.
Mhm.
And so if we don't understand fiat currency and the US dollar and the monetary system, if you don't understand that, then you're missing a piece of the pie. And so again, it's not a textbook. It's a lot of my own personal stories are built into there. So
Mhm.
those are the first 5 chapters. But then quickly we go into the part 2 of the book, which is how to protect yourself. And I know not everybody, I get it. Not everybody is like, hey, Tony, I'm not really a financial person. I'm not looking to become, multimillionaire. I just want to have a good return on life. I get it. That's like my neighbors. They go camping for the weekend, and they're more interested in that than anything else. God bless them. I'm okay. I'm not judging. So I break up that second part of how to protect yourself into personal freedoms and financial freedoms, right? So, and I give people an a la carte package. I'm not saying you have to do these 10 things to preserve your personal freedoms. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, hey, you can try some of these things. Things like I'm a huge fan of, and I have myself, a garden in my backyard. I know where my fruits and my vegetables and my potatoes come from. I think a potato is a vegetable, right? I think that's how they classify it now.
Yeah.
But we pull out of the ground like 300 potatoes each year, right?
Wow.
I know where, some of my food comes from. And so it's a nice freedom to have, that peace of mind of I I know it's organic, there's no chemicals being used, right? I know where some of my food is coming from. And so that's nice. And oh, by the way, it also gives me some peace between the ears when I'm out there weeding or watering, and I have some quiet time with myself to just kind of think,
Mm,
right? Instead of being in front of Fox News or CNN or MSNBC,
mm,
right? That stuff just stirs you up inside. And so just having a garden, just right there, I mentioned two things that where I get freedom from just by having a garden. How easy is that? And then I also mentioned, for personal freedoms, I spoke about I'm a first generation American. My parents migrated here from another place. And so I'm working on getting my second citizenship and passport with another country. That'll
mm,
just give me a little more ease of freedom traveling
mm,
to different places, right? And potentially one day purchasing something overseas, which would hopefully provide me even more freedom.
mm.
Um, but those are just two examples that I put for personal freedoms.
Okay.
Financial freedoms, there's a lot of different things you can do for financial freedoms. We spoke about some of them here. One of that I speak a lot about is asymmetric plays. And
Mhm.
again, I don't know why they don't teach these things in school. And it sounds so fancy and like you got to get a college degree to talk about it. Asymmetric play is nothing more than, buying something when it's at a very low price and then selling it when it just goes to the moon. And so the example I use is Bitcoin. We all had the opportunity to buy a Bitcoin when it was like a nickel, right?
Mm,
Um, and so if I took like $100, chances are we all have $100, and I go buy something like that for a nickel, right? I buy $100 worth and I just sit on it. And now, Bitcoin, I think it's still going up and down and it's all over the place, but it's like, I don't know, like $60,000. I
mm.
mean, if I invested $100 with very little risk, right? If I lost that, I lost $100. Chances are, who cares, right? I lost $100. But if it does pop, I'm going to be a multimillionaire, right?
Yeah.
So that's an asymmetric play, something with low downside but tremendous upside. And there's things out there like that. So those are just a couple of things I share with folks. It's not like they got to do these 10 things and these
Mm.
10 things, and it's a workload on top of their going to work. It's not. It's you pick something that resonates with you. If having a garden resonates with you, God bless you. Go start a garden. Go figure that out, right? If doing, swing trades is something that resonates with you to create a little extra income, go learn how to do swing trades, right? Or asymmetric plays or whatever it is, right?
Sounds
Or
like
set
there are
up
a
an
lot of
Amazon
options
storefront.
available to do that. But we are out of time. And it sounds like there's a wealth of information in that book. And I'm sure you could go on and on with many different examples. So I'd urge the listeners to get a copy of the book and take a deeper dive into all of this. I'll leave some links in the show notes on how to get the book. But I appreciate you coming on the show, Tony, and telling us how we could set on a path to maybe retiring a decade or two earlier and doing what we want in life rather than what we have to.
That's right. Well, this was a lot of fun, Steve. Thanks for having me on. True
All right.
pleasure.
Mm-hmm.